Yeah, absolutely.
What? So you were watching these. I mean, you had these groups leading up to the 2020 election. You're obviously continuing them now. What? What's been the shift? I mean, what was it in your mind that had, because you talked to these people who voted for Trump in 16 and then for Biden in 2020, what were the drivers of why they switched? And what does it mean? I mean, and is there anything you can, divine or point to as far as how things look going into the 2022 election? Even though it's a midterm, it's not Biden or Trump.
Yeah, so it's a mixed bag for Biden and Trump, honestly. So for Biden, every month I ask a question, which is, imagine there's a rematch between Trump and Biden, and imagine that the election's tomorrow. Who would you vote for? And what you see is that nearly all of these Trump to Biden voters would stick with Biden. In the last 4 months, I've asked out of 48 people, 44 of them would stick with Biden.
Wow.
Now, that's on the plus side. On the minus side, they don't love Biden. They don't love Biden at all. For him, he had one characteristic that was more important to them than anything else, which was he wasn't Trump.
Right.
And so to me, my favorite analogy, it's like comparing the fifth place team against the sixth place team. Right? It's like fifth place team is nominally better than the sixth place team, but there's no enthusiasm. The other thing I would say is that when I ask people the one emotion they feel the most when they see Biden on TV or on their devices, the response I get, well, the response I got back in January, February, March of last year was, I feel relief, I feel calm, I feel renewed pride. And that has now shifted to, and that was almost everybody in the groups, to now it becomes like 50 or 60% saying, I'm frustrated, I'm confused when I see him. And then some other people just saying positive things, that they still like him and that he makes them feel confident and assured. So you could see the slide in public opinion among these voters just by tracking the monthly comments that people have made when I asked that question. What's the one emotion you feel the most when you see Biden on TV or on your device?
That's a great question. What do you get? Do you get any responses with people saying they feel sad or that they're worried about his cognitive ability? Is that popped up at all, or is that just more just the inside the bubble chattering?
Oh, that is an ongoing theme that runs through this work, which is a decided concern or awareness that Biden is not as sharp as they would like him to be. And it morphs into a conservative talking point that you hear endlessly in conservative media, that other people are running the administration that Biden is not. It's being run by people in the cabinet. It's being run by Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. No, but Biden himself is not in charge. And because he can't be, because he's not up to the job. That's sort of the implication of these comments that I hear over and over again. And the most interesting one, honestly, is, and I find this always so striking, where people will say in the focus group, I heard Biden say, I really shouldn't be saying this, but. And that's let's just spend a second deconstructing that, right? That's the kind of thing that people say in ordinary conversation all the time, right? They kind of know in their heart they should keep it to themselves, but they'll sort of say, oh, I really shouldn't be saying this, but blah, 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 and they'd say something. When Biden says it, it has a nefarious overtone to some people. And they seem to think, well, he says he shouldn't be saying it. Maybe, he was told he can't say it. Someone who's really in charge told him that, and he's kind of like forgetting that he can't say it, and he's sort of pushing it out there. And I've described this to people, and it's just it's such a fascinating thing. And again, keep in mind, guys, I have to keep a poker face throughout these sessions.
Right.
And I have heard some pretty bizarre stuff over the last 3 years.
I can only imagine.
What is the most bizarre thing you've heard?
Oh, the most bizarre. Oh, Chris, I'm so glad you asked that question.
Well, I mean, you led me right into it, so I just
Oh my God.
I took the bait.
So the best one, and if you want, I can send you the audio for this, but I'll just describe it to you.
Yeah.
I had a woman back in March or April last year when I asked the question. We were talking during the focus group, and remember, this is a Trump. These are all Trump to Biden groups. So most of these people tolerate Biden and really have given up on Trump, right? That's kind of the mindset.
Okay.
All right. So she says to me, she starts criticizing Biden about this and Biden about that. And she's saying these really positive things about Trump. So I said to her, like, why did you vote for Biden? And she said, I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't take it anymore with the criticisms of Trump. It was driving me nuts. And I said, so you voted for Biden as an act of mercy for President Trump? And she said, yes. So even though Trump wanted to be reelected, she couldn't stand what was happening to him so much that she decided to throw him out of office.
That is fascinating. I wonder how many people voted that way, or that was the motivation. That's fascinating.
She was the only one, Sean.
Well,
she couldn't,
but she couldn't have been. She's representative of some number, right?
I own. It's like that's got to be a pretty small number.
Pretty
of people.
small number.
But wouldn't you say there? I mean, back off that sentiment just a little bit. People were tired of the drama, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you get that in your feedback. People were tired of the drama, the mean tweets. Every day was like, what's he going to do today? What's he going to say today? And I would imagine there was just this fatigue amongst some voters that, even though Donald Trump would never say, "Oh, I shouldn't be saying this," he wouldn't care. He said whatever came to mind, which some might argue was a good thing, but I would imagine there was just this fatigue amongst folks who voted for him, gave him a chance, probably agreed with most of the policies per se, but just was tired of the man.
Yeah, that was very
accurate?
clear. I mean, the sense of relief that people felt once Trump was out of office was palpable in January, February, and March last year in particular. Well, yes, they even had one woman say to me, "I don't have to check my phone, all day and all night to make sure the world isn't going to blow up."
Yeah.
So,
well, and I gotta believe that there were people who felt very vindicated in their decision to vote for Biden over Trump after January 6th.
Oh yeah, there was no doubt in my mind that was something that they felt very strongly about. January 6th did not go over well with this crowd at all. Even so, I'll tell you just quickly, I asked a couple of months ago, I had a really in-depth conversation with them about the January 6th committee. And these folks are not paying close attention at all. And that's another important theme of this. These folks, they know their own lives inside and out, but in terms of what's going on in Washington, paying nominal attention. So, for example,
they're not crazy like we are.
Yeah, not at all. Yeah. You got to be very careful with that. And so the most important thing to take away from this is that while they wanted the committee to do its work, they thought people who didn't provide information or were unwilling to testify should go to jail. That on the one side of the ledger, you had that. They felt very seriously that this committee had to be taken seriously, and because they don't want to see these mistakes repeated. To your point about how it affected them. But on the flip side, they couldn't name a single member of the committee. None of them.
Right.
Liz Cheney didn't come up. Kinzinger didn't come up. Benny Thompson didn't come up. They had no clue who served on the committee. So you have to sort of weigh how seriously is this stuff taken when they can't tell you even a single person on the committee, and someone like Liz Cheney, who's obviously considered like a media celebrity now, right? Given all the attention she's gotten on both sides. That they had no idea who she was. Well,
and it goes to a kind of an article of faith to some degree that I have held that I learned from Stephen Shattuck, John Shattuck's father, who wrote the book How to Win an Election, that in a close election, the people who actually decide the election are the ones who are the least informed and least engaged, that they are the indifferents, that they kind of, at the last minute, decide, I got to go vote. And, they don't vote. They're not informed voters in the sense that they're not like truly undecided in the sense that they're weighing these back and forth. It sounds to me like a lot of the participants in your groups probably fit that mold. that they just don't pay close attention and they kind of go on a whim.
Yeah. So the engagement levels vary on issue to issue. So if I ask about inflation, for example, they can rattle off everything where the price has gone up.
Yeah.
But if I ask them what policies should be imposed to try to fix it, they have nothing to say.
Yeah.
So that's an important distinction there in terms of what they know and don't know. I'm reminded often, Sean, of my high school civics teacher, Joe Katz. May he rest in peace. And Joe Katz used to joke about people having what he called an exchange of ignorances when they would argue with each other and didn't know what the hell they were talking about. And he was a marvelous guy. I could regale you with stories about him. I won't do that. But I remember that phrase vividly because it reminds me of what I get in so many of these focus groups, is that people are just talking about stuff where they really don't know. And, I know stuff pretty well, obviously, and I try not to embarrass people in the focus groups. I don't want to make them feel stupid. But there are times where I'll say, by a show of fingers, instead of a show of hands, a show of fingers, how many of you know about X? And no hands go up. And I'll say, really? But I don't want to harbor and make them feel bad because I still want them to talk. I don't want to shut them down. So you have to be very careful in displaying this. But I have a sizzle reel of people not knowing the answers to things that the three of us know the answers to. Like, did you hear that the House passed a bill Friday night to rebuild America's infrastructure? I asked this, the House had voted on a Friday night. I asked about it the following Tuesday night. Not a single person in one of the groups had even heard that Congress had passed this bill. It's $1 trillion plus, right? It's considered a pretty big deal for many people in politics.